So general exam tips. You need to understand that this is not a specialty exam. This is a core coding credential. They're testing you on your general understanding of coding principles. They say that really you can figure out everything from your manuals. It's nothing where you have to have had it memorized. But obviously, if you're familiar with the guidelines, you're going to know where to go to look at and verify it, okay? So it's a broad base of knowledge. How many are afraid of like VIR coding, vascular stuff, right? Normally I mention that, I'm like, ugh, you know, those are so hard. And there's 10 questions on the 30,000 series, which is one of the few that are shared by 2 anatomical sections, respiratory and cardio. They're not going to have 10 VIR questions. They might have 1, and it's going to be broad. It's not going to be nitty-gritty detail where you need to know the vascular anatomy like the back of your hand, okay? So relax a little bit in that, okay? You don't need to know the nitty-gritty detail of the entire CPT and ICD manual, okay? If you're currently involved in billing, how many are involved in billing right now? Okay, you're going to have to try and divorce yourself from that billing and reimbursement knowledge because it's going to throw you off track. Because the board exam picture, you're in the perfect coding world. No one's messed with the rules. If you play Monopoly, right, don't all families kind of change the Monopoly rules a little bit? They have printed rules, okay? So you're being tested on the printed Monopoly rules. Now your family might say, oh, the money goes in the middle. If you land on free parking, you get the money in the middle. That's not in the rules. Okay, but that's a made up. So the payers will come along and change things. That might become your new family rules or whatever. But what you're being tested on are the printed rules. So always go to the books, go to the manual. It's the guidelines that you're being tested on. Okay, an example is with colonoscopies. In the CPT book, it says to use modifier 53 if you can't complete the colonoscopy because the prep wasn't done right or whatever. In the real world, most payers will tell you, well, code as far as you got. Because, you know, colonoscopy goes, you know, all the way up, over, and down. It's the whole shebang. But they've also got, you know, procto-sigs, which only go part way up the colon. So they'll say, well, if that's as far as you got, code a procto-sig. But in CPT, it doesn't say that. So we need to go by what CPT says, not by what you might be experiencing in the real world. Okay? That's why I like teaching, because I can stay in the perfect coding world. The last one is very key, and I had a chat with someone about this recently, that your inner self-talk, I feel, is probably 75% of you succeeding on this exam. I really believe that. Part of going to a review class and all the studying is to really increase your confidence. Yes, your knowledge, but it's really more your confidence. You feel well prepared. So, I mean, I don't know if all of you believe in that, but I really do believe if you, like the athletes, they talk all the time about visualizing their moves. The pole vaulters, they visualize it over and over in their head. They're not pole vaulting all day. When they're not pole vaulting, they're rehearsing it in their head. So if you could change that inner dialogue to, instead of, I'm not a good test taker, to, I'm really prepared well for this. I'm ready for this. I know it's going to be challenging, but I can do it. And it really does work. And when you go and you take that exam, you're going to have an advantage than if you've been beating yourself up and that negative self-talk. Okay? Now, to help that confidence, you need to have time management. And time management comes from learning a technique, but then practicing the technique. Okay? Because you can learn techniques, but unless you've actually had to put them through their paces, it doesn't become a part of your habit of how to do things. So picture if I said, okay, you know what, surprise, instead of the review blitz, you're actually going to be taking the exam, right? So, and you have no preparation whatsoever, and I put the exam in front of you, you're going to start with question 1, and you're going to have no feeling for how fast you should be going, because it's 5 hours. You're like, okay, 5 hours, that's a lot. I can do. And you kind of go slow, and you're methodical, and you really want to make sure you get that first one right, and that's what kind of happens. And then all of a sudden the proctor says, okay, you have 30 minutes left. You're like, what? And you're only halfway through the exam. Okay, so by having time management and having a system, okay, I'm going to give myself 1 hour per column, 1 hour per 30 questions, and I'm going to have a little timer. And I recommend you bring a timer with you. Unfortunately, I always use my cell phone for a timer, but they're not going to let you have a cell phone out because you could maybe look up something. But if you have a good old-fashioned digital kitchen timer that can count down, I would do that. Try and find one that's kind of quiet so you don't, upset your neighbors. I used to tell people, ask your proctor, but apparently they're refusing to do it, and because they get involved in their little side conversations, and, it's a long day for them too, and they're volunteering to be there. So if you bring your own little timer that counts down and put it on the table so you can see that hour counting down, you'll get that adrenaline going, you'll get going, and you need that, okay? So after you go through this review, I highly recommend you do practice exams. And I will share with you, I'll create a slide at the break, but I'll also email everyone my recommended practice exams. My number one recommendation are the AAPC practice exams. They have 3 50-question practice exams. I call them version A, B, and C. Okay? So I would give yourself 110 minutes, 2 minutes per question, to get used to that speed, and do them one at a time. And then see how you did. Score yourself on the first one. Maybe you got a 60. That's okay. Go over the ones you got wrong, and even the ones you got right, because they give you rationales. Give yourself some time. Maybe study a little bit more on the weak areas. Then do practice exam B, and then C. If you get the CPC study guide, they've got a little practice exam in there as well. The one I feel is truly most like the real exam are the practice exams that they sell on their website, A, B, and C.